Hey gardening friends, Happy New Year. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing all the different varieties of annual flowers I'm going to be growing this year. When I started gardening over 10 years ago, it was mostly for the purpose of growing flowers. I absolutely love planting flowers in my garden, and I was spending a lot of money on purchasing flowers from nurseries and the big box stores, and I wanted to be able to save myself some money by growing my own flowers from seed. And around 3 years ago, I was able to finally achieve that goal of almost exclusively growing my own flowers from seed and not having to purchase hardly anything from nurseries or big box stores, with exception to dahlias and caladiums, which I purchased from an online flower retailer. So hopefully this video will give you some ideas of flowers that you can maybe start yourself from seed to be able to save yourself a little bit of money here and there as well. So this year I'm going to be growing over 20 different varieties of flowers. These are all going to be annual flowers. Some of these are flowers that are considered perennial or biennial in my area, such as snapdragons and some other flowers. I don't rely on these flowers to come back every year. The reason being that you typically, when I plant such flowers in my garden, they don't produce as well the next year. So I always plan to replant them the following year. If I end up getting, a volunteer or if something ends up coming back, great. But if it doesn't, I'll have something to replace it with. Many of the flowers that I'm going to be discussing with you today are flowers that I've grown in prior years. A lot of them actually grew in 2025. Some of them are going to be a little bit new to me. As I go through each flower, I'll do my best to share information such as, the average height of the plants, width, if I have that information on hand, as well as what type of, sun exposure it prefers, and so on and so forth. If I have a picture of that flower growing in my garden from the previous season, I'll show that on the screen. Otherwise, I'll share a stock image of that flower just so you can see what it looks like. The majority of these flowers I'm going to be planting out in containers and planters, either in my backyard or in my front yard. Additionally, I'm going to be planting out some of these flowers in either my vegetable garden bed, my perennial garden bed, and my cut flower garden bed. As I go through each variety, I'll do my best to share where I intend to plant out these flowers. In case you may be considering planting some of these flowers, maybe this will give you ideas about where these can be planted out in your growing space. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So I'm going to start going through the flowers that I'm going to be starting indoors the furthest out from my last spring frost date, and that's going to be at 14 weeks. Then I'll work my way through towards the ones that I'm going to be growing the closest to my last spring frost date. Most of these flowers are very low maintenance. A lot of them are heat tolerant, drought tolerant. Many of them attract pollinators and beneficial insects. I'll do my best to share that information along the way in case that may be of interest to you. All right, so the first flower that I'm going to be growing, and this one I'm going to be starting at 14 weeks before my last frost date. This is a geranium, and it's called Geranium F1 Rose from a seed company called Outside Pride. This is, a typical geranium. It grows about 1 foot tall, I guess about 12 to 14 inches tall. I grow this particular plant for the purpose of adding to my containers as a filler flower. Grew this in 2025 as well. Nice pop of color. Again, it's not anything extraordinary, but it's a nice filler plant that I like to throw in my container plant. So we'll be growing this again for 2026. Geraniums typically bloom summer to fall. They love full sun. So if this is something that you have an interest in growing, I would definitely put it in a spot that gets full sun at least for 8 to 12 hours out of the day. All right, the next set of seeds I'm going to show you are flowers that I'm going to be starting 12 weeks out from my last spring frost date. And the first one is a flower called Lobelia, and the color is fountain blue. It's like a bluish purple color. And I got this seed from a seed company called Park Seed. Grew this one in 2025. This is a nice mounding flower that spills over your containers. So I primarily grow it in containers and planters. If you're looking for a mounding flower that has a nice pop of color, would definitely recommend this one. It does prefer full sun and part shade. If this is something that you're interested in growing, would definitely take that into consideration. It blooms early summer through fall. Would definitely consider growing this one if you've never grown it before. The next ones I'm going to be growing 12 weeks before my last spring frost are called verbena. And I have two different varieties of verbena. One is called Compact Rose, and it's from a seed company called Outside Pride. The other one is called Verbena Sweetheart Kisses, and it's from Seeds and Such. Grew both of these in 2025. I absolutely love verbena. I think I first came across this flower maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I purchased a couple verbena plants from Proven Winners, and I loved it so much. I was like, I need to figure out how to grow this one myself from seed so I can have it every year in my garden. So this is one that I absolutely love growing. I grow it in containers. You can also grow it in ground. I also like to cut it occasionally and add it to my flower bouquets that I put together. But if you've never grown it, I would definitely say give these a try. They love full sun. So if you've got a nice area that you can plant these in that gets full sun, they definitely would love that. They bloom pretty much from summer through first frost. They grow about 8 inches in height. So not a very tall flower, but it's a great filler flower. I love to add these as a nice pop of color in my containers. The compact rose is like a light rose or a light pink color. And then the sweetheart kisses is more of like a reddish pink color. So love adding these both in my containers and also cutting them to add to my flower bouquets. And then next are colas. So I'm growing two different varieties of colas. One is a wizard golden, which is like a pale green color. And the other one is just a rainbow mix of colas. Grew the rainbow mix in 2025. I grew the wizard golden a couple years ago. I'm going to be growing it again, this year. I think it'll add a nice little variation of color. I'm going to be growing these both in containers as a thriller flower, so it'll be sort of a nice centerpiece flower for my containers. They prefer partial shade to full shade, so something to keep in mind if you intend on growing colas. Colas do take a long time to grow into a mature plant. This is one reason why I prefer to start it a little bit early, at 12 weeks. Even though you could get away with growing it at 8 weeks before your last frost date, I prefer 12 because I know it takes a long time for it to grow a root system and get to a mature height, before I can then transplant it outdoors. One other thing to note about colas, they don't like and they don't tolerate cold weather very well. So I usually wait until we have temperatures about 60 degrees on a consistent basis before I plant them out. Otherwise, I run the risk of them dying back or shriveling up from the cold weather. In order to prevent that, I'm planning to plant these out once we get consistent 60-degree weather. Colas plants can get up to 12 inches in height. I have seen my colas get a little bit taller than that, up to about 14 to 15 inches in height. The next one that I'm going to be growing at 12 weeks before my last frost is a pansy, and this is called Coronation Gold from Baker Creek. So similar to colas, I like to start these out at 12 weeks before my last frost to give them enough time to get a couple inches of growth on them, to get a good established root system before I transplant them outdoors. I prefer to plant these out in the springtime. It's usually a great first pop of color for my containers and my planters. This particular pansy can get up to 8 inches in height. I would say at a minimum of about 6 inches in height. They prefer full sun. They pretty much bloom spring through summer, and in some cases, they'll even put on a second flush of blooms in the fall. The last set of flowers I'm going to be starting 12 weeks out from my last frost day are petunias. So I have three different varieties of petunias. The first two are from Outside Pride, and they are Petunia grandiflora burgundy. And the second one is called Petunia grandiflora salmon. They're both F1 flowers, meaning they are hybrids. So you can't save the seed and use it again next year because you may not get the same flower. But they are very beautiful. I've grown them both in the prior season. It's a great flower that trails. It's mounding as well. So I typically plant these out in specific containers where they can sort of trail, spill over, and add a really nice pop of color during the summer. The other petunia that I'm going to be growing this year is called Easy Wave Yellow. And this is from Seeds and Such. And again, it's another great, trailing flower that spills over your containers. It takes them a little while to get to a mature size, but once they get to that size and they start to get consistent warm weather, they really do take off. Like these petunias produce for me all summer and all fall. These petunias prefer full sun to partial shade. They can get up to 10 inches in height, and they bloom late spring, early summer, all the way through first frost. All right, so now we're going to be going through flowers that I'm going to be planting out 10 weeks before my last frost date. So we're going to start with Dichondra Silver Falls. So Dichondra Silver Falls is a vining plant, and it's like a silvery green color. The leaves are very unique to me. They look like little small silver coins almost, like very, very beautiful and unique. I did grow Dichondra Silver Falls last year. They grow about 3 inches in height. They prefer full sun. They will bloom for you from summer through fall, pretty much. I like to add these in my containers as a nice trailing flower. So that's how I'm going to be using it for 2026. The next one is called Dusty Miller Silver Dust from Seeds and Such. And I grew one Dusty Miller last year. I sowed the seeds later in the summer, and it's a plant that grows very slowly. So by the time fall came around, it did not get to a mature enough size. So I ended up overwintering it in hopes that, I can plant it out in the spring or summer, and potentially it will continue to grow and maybe blossom into a nice mature plant. Not sure if it will or not. We'll see if it overwintered well, but if it didn't, I'm going to have another plant to replace it with. So this time around, I'm going to be sowing the seeds 10 weeks before my last frost date so I can plant it outdoors in the early summer. So that's Dusty Miller Silver Dust. Dusty Miller can get up to 12 inches in height. I would say at a minimum of about 8 inches. The foliage is a silvery white color. Very beautiful flower. So I'm hoping that I have some good success growing it this year. It's great for containers. You can also plant it in ground and use it as sort of like a border plant or ground cover. The next flower that I'm going to be starting 10 weeks out is Statice. I grow Statice primarily for the purpose of cutting it and adding it to my flower bouquets. And so I'm going to be planting this in my cut flower garden bed. Now in 2025, I planted Statice in containers, and I found that it didn't produce as well as it produced the year I planted it in ground. So this year I'm kind of going back to my old method, and I'm going to be planting this in the ground in the cut flower garden bed because I want to make sure I have plenty of Statice to add to my flower bouquets this year. So purchased this from Johnny's. It's a great, if you've never grown Statice before, I would definitely recommend it. It's a beautiful flower that has a nice variation of color. This particular variety is called Forever Happy, and it's a light rose color with like yellow accents. It's a very beautiful flower. It's hard to describe. I have to show a picture on the screen so you can see what it looks like, but absolutely beautiful flower to add to bouquets. So I'm going to be growing this one so I can make sure I have plenty of that. It can grow to about 24 to 30 inches in height. It can get pretty tall, so I guess keep that in mind if this is something that you are interested in growing. But absolutely love Statice. I'm excited to be growing that one again this year. The other one that I'm going to be growing is called Viola King Henry. And to me, this is very similar to a pansy flower. They look very similar to me. I've never grown this particular variety of viola in the past. I have grown violas before, but not this particular variety. So I am excited to see what this is going to look like. Based on the information from the Botanical Interest website, it says that they can grow from 4 to 8 inches tall. So it would be great pop of color. I'm planning to use it as a filler flower for my containers that I'm going to be planting out for the summer. It prefers full sun to partial shade, and it's going to bloom for you spring, summer, and fall. And then the last flower that I'm going to be growing 10 weeks out from my last frost date are snapdragons. So this is a snapdragon that I purchased from Baker Creek, one of their taller varieties of snapdragons. This particular variety, it says, can grow up to 36 inches tall. And I would say that mines have grown to about 24 to 30 inches tall. So that definitely holds some truth. This one is a mix, so it's going to give you a mix of different colors. I like to plant these in my containers. Prior years, I have planted it in the ground as well in my perennial garden bed. So you can definitely plant it in containers. It's also great for planting in ground. These will bloom for you throughout the season. So I typically plant these out in the early summer, and they pretty much bloom for me all the way up to our first frost. Pollinators love these. So if you're looking for a pollinator friendly flower, I would say this is a good one that would attract your pollinators, your beneficial insects. And I love to cut these and make bouquets with these as well. So can't wait to grow this one again for 2026. All right, so 10 weeks before my last spring frost, I'm going to be starting some sweet peas. This is a sweet pea blend or mix that I purchased from Burpee a few years ago. And this particular variety can get up to 60 inches tall. It blooms early summer to late summer. It prefers full sun to partial shade. I'm planning to add this to my perennial garden bed. In the past, I have grown this in an area that gets direct sun for the majority of the day, and I didn't have really great success growing it in that space. So this year I'm going to plan to grow it in my perennial garden bed in the area of that bed that gets less direct sunlight to see if I have better success with it. I'm also going to be adding this to my containers. The next one that I'm going to be starting 10 weeks out is called Marigold Signette, and this is a lemon and tangerine color. So for this particular variety, you get either the yellowish or the lemon color or the orange, or in some cases you get a mix of both. Last year I grew this one and I got a mix of both colors in my plants, which was awesome. Very beautiful marigold. It grows to about 12 inches tall. It's a bushier variety than your traditional marigold, and the flower heads are about 1 to 1.5 inches in width. It does self-seed quite heavily, so something to pay special attention to if it's something that you have an interest in growing in your garden. Most likely you will get a lot of volunteers the following season. I like to use my marigolds to deter pests from attacking my vegetables. I'm going to be planting these out in several of my garden beds this year. If you've never grown this one before, would definitely give it a try. It's very easy to grow, low maintenance. You don't have to deadhead it or anything like that, and it'll grow for you from summer through first frost. I've also grown these in containers. So if you don't have like a garden bed and you don't have space in ground for these, you can definitely plant these in containers and they will flourish throughout the season. The next flower I'm going to be starting is called Alyssum Oriental Nights, and I purchased this from Botanical Interest. This is a nice trailing plant, beautiful purple, tiny purple flowers. This one will bloom for you summer through fall or your first frost. Pollinators love this particular plant. I had butterflies and hummingbirds fighting over this plant last year. If you're looking for a flower that pollinators love or that attracts butterflies and hummingbirds, would definitely recommend this one. It grows about 2 to 4 inches tall, and it can grow from 6 to 12 inches wide. Alyssum prefers full sun, and as I mentioned, it's going to bloom for you from summer through your first fall frost. The next one is ageratum. Not sure if I'm saying that right, but I've never grown this before. I think it's such a unique looking flower, and I am very interested in growing it so I can add it to my flower bouquets. It's called Blue Planet, and I purchased this from Botanical Interest a few years ago. Based on information from the website, it can get up to 38 inches tall, and 8 to 12 inches wide. So I'm going to be planting these out in containers, and I'm going to be planting them in mass, meaning in containers by themselves, so I can get as many as I can for making flower bouquets. Ageratum blooms summer to your first fall frost. It has half-inch bluish purple flowers with feathery petals and clusters. I mean, doesn't that sound beautiful? I mean, I can't wait to see what that looks like. And it prefers full sun to part shade. And then the next one is celosia. So I'm going to be growing this in containers this year again. Got this from Baker Creek. This is a mix. It's called Rainbow Plume Mix. So you're going to get a variety of different flowers from this mix. Last year I got a lot of pinks and reds, and that sort of like orange looking color. Love celosia. I also like to cut it and add it to my flower bouquets as well. Celosia will grow up to about 12 inches tall. It prefers full sun, and it's going to bloom for you from summer through fall. A nice, unique, feathery looking flower. Absolutely love celosia, and I'm looking forward to growing that one again this year. And then next, I'm going to be growing some gomphrena again. So both from Baker Creek. This one is called Atomic Purple. It's a beautiful purple color with like a white or a light pink center. And then the other is called Salmon Pastel, which is like a dark pink with a light rose pink center. I'm going to be growing these both in containers. Gomphrena grows up to about 2 to 3 feet tall. They prefer full sun, and they typically bloom summer through fall. Last year, mine bloomed all the way through our first fall frost. Beautiful flower, like a nice small drumstick flower with a beautiful variation of color. This is also one that the pollinators love. The bees absolutely go crazy for gomphrena. So if you're looking for another pollinator friendly flower, this is something to consider as well. And then the next one is the straw flower. And this is the tall double mix that I purchased from Baker Creek a couple years ago. Grew this one in 2025. Straw flowers typically grow to about 2.5 to 3 feet tall. They typically bloom late summer. For me, usually you can cut them and they'll grow back. So I usually cut them, I'll add them to my flower bouquets, and then they will continue to produce, throughout the summer. Mines don't typically last all the way up through the fall, but we'll see if maybe I have a different experience this year. You never know. But love straw flowers. Again, this is a mix, so you get a mix of different colors, which is awesome. If you're interested in growing cut flowers and you're looking for a flower you can grow and add to your bouquets, would definitely recommend straw flower. It's a beautiful flower to add to your flower arrangements. I grew it for the first time 2 years ago and have been growing it ever since. And then the last two that I'm going to be growing 8 weeks before my last frost are stock. So this is called Lavender Blue from Johnny's. And then the next one is Feverfew Tetra White, also from Johnny's. I grow both of these for the purpose of adding them to my flower bouquets. I'm going to be growing them both in containers, and they're going to each have their own separate set of containers. Last year I grew the fountain blue stock for the very first time. They had never grown this color before. It was absolutely beautiful, like such a beautiful color of blue. And I only sowed a couple seeds, so I only ended up with just a couple plants, and I was so bummed out that I didn't have more. The only thing with stock is that once you cut it, it doesn't grow back again. So it's one of those flowers where, once you cut it and you use it, for adding it to a bouquet or however you plan to utilize it, it's not going to come back again. That's pretty much the end of that flower stem. So it doesn't push out new blooms. So that's the only bummer about this type of flower is it doesn't continue to produce. Once you cut it, it's pretty much done. So something to keep in mind if you're interested in growing stock. And then Feverfew, I've grown this before in the past. It's a beautiful white color. My bouquets are typically full of colors such as pinks and yellows and lavenders, and so the white just kind of helps to balance it out a bit. So I'm excited to grow this one again for the purpose of adding it to my flower bouquets in 2026. So stock can get up to 32 inches tall. It blooms spring through early summer and it prefers cool weather. So something to keep in mind if you want to try growing stock. And then for feverfew, it can grow up to 36 inches tall. It's best to plant this one out in the spring or fall because it does prefer cool weather. It's a great cut flower, but a lot of people also use it as a dry flower. So they will cut it, they'll let it dry out, and they'll use it in different floral arrangements. So, or different art projects. If that's something that you're into, then this might be something to consider for growing in 2026. All right, we're getting close to the end here, wrapping things up. So at 6 weeks before my last frost date, I'm going to be starting a couple different types of flower seeds. The first one being a Cosmo Diablo. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? A gorgeous flower. I grew this one last year, planted it all over my garden. It really just took my breath away every time I saw it. It's like a yellowish orange color. Absolutely beautiful flower. The pollinators love it. The bees were loving this flower all summer, all fall. I can't wait to grow it again. I planted it in my vegetable garden bed as well as in containers all throughout my backyard. So excited to grow this again for 2026. One thing to note about these particular variety, they can grow up to 5 feet tall. If it's something you're interested in growing, make sure you have space for it. Bloom summer to your first fall frost. Prefers full sun. And then the petals, the flower petals, I would say are about 1.5 to 2 inches in width. It's a nice substantial flower head. So I'm really looking forward to growing this one again for 26. The next one is a Cosmo Sensation Mix. And these are seeds that I purchased years ago. I'm not even certain which seed company I purchased it from. It's a mix, so it's a variety of different colors. I believe it's like white, light pink, and dark pink, or white, light pink, and reddish pink color. And I'm going to be planting these out in my perennial garden bed. Again, it's a great pollinator friendly plant. So I'm trying to plant it in places where I want the pollinators to have a meetup, so to speak. So I'm going to be planting that all throughout my perennial garden bed for attracting pollinators. The Cosmos Sensation Mix can get up to 48 inches tall, prefers full sun, and it blooms summer through first fall frost. If you haven't grown it before and you love Cosmos, we'll definitely recommend that one as well. The next one is a calendula. It's called Calendula zeolites. And I purchased this from Botanical Interest. And I'm going to be planting this out in my containers as a nice filler plant. For some of the containers, I'm going to be planting out in my yard this year. This particular calendula can get up to 24 inches tall. This particular variety blooms spring through your first fall frost. And they generally prefer, full sun. A very beautiful calendula. And looking forward to growing that one this year. And then the next ones that I'm going to be showing you are all zinnias, with the exception to the last one I'm going to show you. But I've got, let's see, 6 different varieties of zinnias I'm going to be growing again this year. So let's first start with the smaller zinnias. So I've got 2 zinnias from Outside Pride. So one is called Star Gold Zinnia. Grew this one last year. Then this is called Dahlia Flowered Dream. It's like a light rose pink color. These are probably shorter variety zinnias, so they're more short, compact, bushier varieties of zinnias. Then the next one is called Zinnia Profusion Bicolor, another small, compact, mounding zinnia. And I'm going to be growing all 3 of these in containers. Grew all 3 of these last year. They get up to about 12 inches tall, prefer full sun, and they pretty much bloom from summer through your first fall frost. If you've never grown either one of these, would definitely recommend the Star Gold Zinnia or the Cherry Bifusion color. Absolutely beautiful flowers. Absolutely beautiful. Pollinator friendly as well. Like the pollinators love these particular zinnias. Then I have one more shorter variety of zinnia called a Zinnia Starlight Rose. from Seeds and Such. Grew this one last year as well. No matter what variety of zinnia you grow, I think you can't go wrong. Like, they're all beautiful. So, yeah, love this one. Planted this in containers last year. Also planted some of these in my vegetable garden bed to attract pollinators. So I'll probably do the same thing this year. And then the last two zinnias are taller varieties of zinnias. They're called Bennery's Giant from a company called Johnny's. So they're Bennery's Giant zinnias, and they're two different colors. One is golden yellow, and then the other one is a coral color. And I exclusively grow these in my cut flower garden bed. That's going to be the only place where I grow these in 2026. So these particular zinnias will get up to 50 inches tall. If you've never grown a Bennery's Giant zinnia and you're interested in growing them, I would say go for it. Just make sure you have plenty of space. They do get pretty tall. Last year, I want to say mines were taller than me by the end of the summer. So, I would definitely recommend growing them, especially if you're into cut flower arrangements. It has a very sturdy stem. Absolutely love Bennery's Giant. I discovered them maybe 3 to 4 years ago, and I've been growing them ever since. So, would recommend trying this particular variety if you're into cut flowers and you're looking for something with a nice tall, strong, sturdy stem. This would definitely be something to consider. Then I have two more flowers that I'm going to be starting from seed as 6 weeks before my last frost date. One is Amaranth Hot Biscuits. If you've never grown it before, just a beautiful coral caramel brown colored flower, and it gets pretty tall. It can get up to 4 feet tall. So if you grow it, obviously you need to make sure you have plenty of space for it. I mostly grow it in containers, and I will cut it occasionally and add it to my flower bouquets as well. But it's a very cool looking flower, very feathery. Like, it reminds me of celosia in terms of the shape of the flower head. So beautiful flower. It prefers full sun. You can grow it in containers. You can grow it in the ground, and it's very durable. It's heat tolerant. Pollinators love it. It also attracts butterflies as well. So if you're looking for something that's pollinator friendly, that attracts, butterflies or hummingbirds, would definitely recommend taking a look at this one. The last ones I'm going to be starting 6 weeks before my last frost date are nasturtiums, which I don't have them here right now because I have them stored in a separate place. I saved seeds from my nasturtium from 2025, and I'm going to be using those to start my plants for this year. I use them as sort of a trap plant for aphids and other pests that I don't want attacking all my vegetables. So my plan is to plant nasturtiums all throughout my vegetable garden beds, like my tomatoes, my peppers, my brassicas. That's why I'm going to be planting out the nasturtiums. And the nasturtiums that I grew last year were yellow, and then some were like a salmon color, like a coral color. So I saved seeds from both of those plants so I can use those this year. I'll be planting those 6 weeks out from my last frost date as well. So I don't have any flower seeds that I'm going to be sowing 4 weeks out from my last frost date. But there are seeds I'm going to be starting 2 weeks out from my last frost date, and those are sunflowers. So as of now, I've only selected one variety of sunflower that I'm going to be starting from seed. I will likely select at least 1 to 2 more. I just haven't decided on the other varieties of sunflowers that I'm going to start from seed this year. But the one that I've selected so far is called Pro Cut Horizon sunflower. And I purchased this from Park Seed several years ago. This is your traditional yellow sunflower. Now, this particular variety can get up to 6 feet tall. I will say that mines have never gotten that tall, thankfully. The tallest I've gotten is about 3 to 4 feet tall, which is still pretty tall, but I'm hoping maybe one day I'll get a 6 foot tall sunflower. Have not gotten one quite yet, but this one can get up to 6 feet tall. Obviously, sunflowers prefer full sun. They usually self-seed. So usually when I plant sunflowers, they drop seeds, and then I will get more sunflowers that pop up throughout the season. I'm planning to plant these out in my vegetable garden beds as well as in my perennial garden bed this year. Once I've determined the other varieties of sunflowers that I'm going to be starting this year, I'll definitely share an update with you guys. So those are all the varieties of flowers that I'm planning on growing this year from seed, with the first one starting at 14 weeks before my last frost date. I will plan to bring you guys along with me as I start these seeds indoors over the next few months. So be sure to come back and check those videos out as I post them. If you have any questions about any of the varieties that I covered here today, feel free to drop me a comment below and I'll do my best to answer. Stay tuned for other videos I'll be posting soon, covering herbs and vegetables that I'm going to be growing in my garden this year as well. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day, and I hope to see you back here soon. Take care, friends.